morning, dear hearts. We are on lesson 70. Please subscribe. So we have a few lessons that we're going to be bringing in to today's lesson, wrapping them in. One is 20, one is 35. And let's just simply begin. So today's lesson is My Salvation Comes From Me. Now that word salvation, as we've said before, I'm not trying to rewrite the course, but some people have, it's a trigger. Salvation, the word salvation, the idea of salvation is a trigger. So we can substitute the words happiness or freedom. Both are true of salvation. Salvation is our happiness. We do find our happiness in our salvation, and indeed with our salvation we are free. This lesson says that, that all temptation is merely for us to not believe today's idea, because it seems like this is preposterous. How can I be responsible for my salvation? And of course, then we know we're also responsible for the salvation of the world, but we'll get there. So what this lesson is telling us is we don't believe that salvation comes from me. We also don't realize that the guilt to deny that also is within our mind. Both the guilt and the salvation are in our own mind and nowhere else. And it says when you realize that all guilt is solely an invention of your mind, you also realize that guilt and salvation must be in the same place. And it's understanding this that we are saved. The second paragraph of this lesson has a line that I've used often. I will again. It's telling, it's empowering, and it says it means to accept today's idea means that nothing outside yourself can save you. Nothing outside yourself can give you peace. Nothing outside. To save me, it's inside. My peace inside. It also means that nothing outside yourself can hurt you or disturb your peace or upset you in any way. There is nothing outside. There is nothing outside that can hurt me, disturb me, or that I will find solace in. It's all an inside job. So it says today's idea puts you in charge of the universe where you belong because of what you are. Now in Lesson 35, that my mind is part of God's. I am very holy. It starts out by saying today's idea does not describe the way you see yourself now, but it does describe what vision will show you. And later on in Lesson 35, it says by establishing your source with a big S, it establishes your identity with a big I. And it describes you as you must really be in truth. So in truth, my salvation comes from me, and it is all within me because of who we are, what we are. We are in charge of this universe. Now, lesson 70 goes on to say it may not be clear why the recognition that guilt is in your own mind entails the realization that salvation is there as well. But it says, God wouldn't have put the solution, the remedy, someplace outside of where the sickness, the problem is. The problem and the remedy must be together because that is where we need them. That's not how the ego mind thinks. The ego mind thinks, all right, there's a problem here. Let me put the solution way over there, maybe in another country, maybe under a rock, maybe down under the ocean floor, someplace where it will never be found. But that's not how the mind of God works. As it says here, He wants you to be healed. So He has kept the source of healing where the need for healing lies, right there where the problem is. Then paragraph 4, it's really quite lovely. It says, you have tried to do just the opposite, making every attempt, however distorted and fantastic it might be, to separate healing from sickness for which it was intended, and thus keep the sickness. If I can't find the remedy, if I can't find the solution, then the only solution is to keep the illness, to keep the dis-ease. Your purpose was to ensure that healing did not occur. God's purpose was to ensure that it did. It's a sure thing because it is God's will. Then it says God wants us to be healed, and we do not really want to be sick because it makes us unhappy. Therefore, in accepting the idea for today, we are really in agreement with God. He does not want us to be sick, and neither do we. He wants us to be healed. So do we. And in lesson 20, then, just for the moment, if we go into paragraph 2, it was talking about structure, because this was the first lesson in introducing it. And it says, do not misconstrue this structure as an effort to exert force or pressure. You want salvation, you want to be happy, you want peace, and you do not have them now because your mind is undisciplined. So in having this structure and coming to see that the remedy, the salvation, the happiness, the freedom is all within, now we can attempt to do exactly what we did yesterday, because the metaphor of the clouds is being used again, to go through the clouds in order to find our salvation. This lesson tells us that, where have we looked for salvation? Where have we looked for our freedom, our happiness in the past, in other people, possessions, various situations and events, and in self-concepts that you sought to make real? Recognize that it's not there, and tell yourself, my salvation cannot come from any of these things. My salvation comes from me and only from me. My salvation cannot come from anywhere else. So again, we use the metaphor of the clouds. The light is beyond the clouds. It says you cannot find your salvation, you cannot find your happiness, your peace in the clouds that surround the light. And it is in them that you have been looking for it, looking in the clouds, looking for the self, and in the clouds, the self-concepts, the possessions, the people, the situation. And none of it was ever there. It is past the clouds and in the light beyond that we find the happiness, that we find the salvation, that we find our peace, we find our freedom. And remember, you will have to go through the clouds before you can reach the light. But remember that also you have never found anything in the cloud patterns that you imagined that has ever endured, because the clouds are ephemeral. They come and they go. They're not solid. They are wisps of vapor and air, and nothing permanent is going to be within them. And then in paragraph 9, I just want to read this little bit because it's so beautiful. And it says, try to pass the clouds by whatever means appeals to you. If it helps you, think of me holding your hand and leading you. And I assure you, this will be no idle fantasy. The answer to every problem, our guide, our teacher, the one who has been given to us to help us find our way back home, is always with us there. He's got our back. He's holding our hand. There's nothing that he will not do for us except to force us. We must come to him, and he is there holding our hand, bringing us home, that we may indeed find our salvation. My salvation comes from me. Nothing outside of me can hold me back. Within me is the world's salvation and my own. And that's it for today. I hope this helped. Please like, please share, please subscribe, please comment, please pray. I thought Buster would make an appearance today, but evidently not. But please be here tomorrow. We are continuing with lessons and ideas about our happiness, our freedom, our salvation. Namaste.